Hello everybody, my name is Jared and today our video is going to be based on me creating a watercolor portrait of one of my D&D characters. Now I have a few videos like this on my channel already, I will drop some links here. But yeah, the entire point of this video is just to create a A4 watercolor portrait of one of my D&D characters. This D&D character is called Varys. He is an undead. And I will just get straight into the designing process. Now before I film this video, I've actually done a little thumbnail, as you saw, of what I wanted to kind of have this picture lay out like, and then I'm just working in some colour comps. I do a colour comp for every single one of my watercolour portraits. It's just so I can get an idea of what kind of colours and lighting and shading and stuff I want to do. Nothing too detailed. But this one particularly needed a colour comp because it just was not working. I liked the idea and I knew that the pose could work, but I knew I had to play around with the balance of black in this one because the character himself was very, very, very dark. He has like a very dark outfit, his like the tones in his skin and stuff are all kind of like greens and darks and that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to make sure that I played with lighting balance in this piece. Once I'd finished figuring out exactly what the colours I wanted to be were like, I went straight in with the sketching phase. I have drawn this character quite a lot of times, so sketching him didn't come too hard honestly, though I haven't drawn him in this kind of like highly detailed way, not a really intense close-up on a bigger piece. I think the hardest point was balancing out his features without it looking too boring, because this piece is really symmetrical. It has this split down the middle, which is one half before he died and the other half after he died. So getting that symmetrical style without it looking super boring was quite difficult. I also don't draw this character directly from the front very often. He's usually at an angle because he has quite a defined nose shape and I like showing that off, but I knew at some point I would have to draw him not at an angle, so here you go. Varys is one of my favourite characters to draw of my D&D characters. I think he's really, really interesting. I think I really enjoy drawing like damaged skin and stuff like that, and you can tell by looking at my sketchbooks, but he's one of the funnest characters for me to draw personally. This piece was also quite difficult because it has a lot of hand focus, because there are two characters' hands coming into the frame. I can't go into who they are right now just because I don't want to spoiler his arc in the comic, but yeah, this is quite a difficult piece for me because hands are not my strong point. It is something I'm trying to work on while I'm in quarantine at the moment. And yes, as of filming this, I'm currently still in quarantine. Though I will say, I filmed this one in April. So do bear in mind, if I'm out of quarantine by then, I will let everybody know. I had a really good time doing this sketch and it just came out exactly how I wanted it really. I think if I was going to do it again though, I would add a little bit more detail in the background, but only in that outer ring background because I don't want it to get muddy around his face. Now I'm just going to go in with some inking. The inking part was fairly simple, I just used my usual inking pens, you can just see them there. And once I'd fine-tuned all of his little details, I just went straight in with inks. Inking wise, I used a few different types of pen, just sizing wise. And I usually haven't worked as much detail in when I'm sketching as I do when I'm inking. But I try and add as many details as possible. I try and make it look as sort of like textured and detailed as I can for watercolour pictures, because obviously watercolour is a little bit more of a soft medium, so if I'm going to get those details in, I need to do it early on. I then start to add the base layers of the watercolour, so those are just the flat colours. So I'm doing stuff like his skin tone, his hair, those kind of things. Add a couple of like flat shades in this section as well, just to get the details in and figure out where the darker areas are going to be. I usually mainly focus this around places where a colour is going to join onto another colour, so I really need to make sure that those like colours are the version of the colour that's going to be visible against the other one. because otherwise you're going to end up with these like really dark areas where you can't really tell what's going on. I usually use water brushes with my watercolour. I just find it easier. I'm a little bit lazy honestly when it comes to watercolour. I just like it to be quick and clean and easy. And here I'm adding a little bit more green into that skin tone because I really want it to be that like dirty, dead green colour. And I add a lot of green into the areas where the skin is particularly damaged, just because it again makes it look like old and dirty and basically rotten. Undead characters are really fun to draw because they are so gross. You don't have to worry about them being pretty, do you know what I mean? I'm adding another layer onto the skin tone of the hand here, just because it wasn't the like rich brown I wanted it to be. Now some of the colours are a little bit patchy. I probably would have used a much bigger brush next time if I'm going to work in an area this big. But I worked with what I had at the time. I don't really have any really big water brushes, honestly. I don't actually have any really big brushes. Shading wise for this one, I tried to make it as sort of soft as possible. I didn't want any like harsh edges. I did try and add a gradient as well, as you can see on that sash that goes across his costume, but retrospect came out really badly. I don't know what it is. I think I just used too much like pigment maybe, or I just was not using big enough brush to do a gradient like that, but it came out really badly, and I would probably change that obviously if I finished it again. As for watercolour, I'm not an expert. I'm just sort of like blundering my way through. I'm completely self-taught with watercolour, so if anyone has any watercolour tips, do let me know. And I actually chose to paint all of his piece, that like main central piece, before I finished sketching the background. And I also, with the background, I paint it and then I detail it with pencil crayons. I detail the whole thing with pencil crayons in a minute, but the reason for that is I don't want the background to stand out as much as the main character, so I ink the main character but don't ink the background. It's a really easy way to make the main focus of the art piece pop a lot more than the actual background pieces, so if you're struggling with getting your characters to pop out of your backgrounds, that is a good, cheap and easy way to do it. Now, not shown for very long here, I actually do the section that I told you about where I do a little tiny bit of pencil shading on top, that's just to pop out any little like tiny detailed areas, as well as inking, well, air quotes, inking the background with pencil crayon. And the pencil crayons that I use are just ones from WH Smith's. They're very good, I really like them. They're kind of like my go-to pencil crayon that I use. They're cheap and they're cheerful and they get the job done. I actually really was pleased with how this one came out, and I hope you like it too. That is my finished piece of Varys, so my D&D character, and I'm really hoping that you'll maybe think about reading the comic that he is from. The first page of it as a speed paint is up on my YouTube, and the rest of it will be coming mid-April, so keep an eye out. I will be linking on my YouTube when it is uploaded. Thank you very much, and as always, please remember to be creepy.